Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This week we're going to continue inching our way towards the eventual repainting of this engine bay. It seems like it's taken us forever to get to this point, and it has taken forever, seems like. So what we're going to do the rest of this week is continue on trying to get to, hopefully by the end of the week and the end of this video, I hope that we're almost to the point of starting the paint prep work, like the last stages of it. So we've got to do some sandblasting, some more body filler and stuff like that in here. But come here and I'll show you exactly what we're talking about. Okay, so as you saw last week, we've got this battery apron ready to put the skim coat of filler on there. In this area down here that had the hole rusted in it, and a little area on the frame down there, we're going to skim coat all that with body filler and sand it down smooth. And then I think what I'll do is remove the top of these shock towers, these brackets that hold the shocks in, and get this one off and the other side off, and then probably this brace here, and actually get those in the sandblaster so I can get those blasted and clean good so they'll paint. They're way up high, so when you open the engine bay you see those really well, so I'd like to have them really smooth and clean stuff so they get a really good paint job on them. And then we'll start in with the part that I've been dreading this whole time, and that's sanding all of this, the whole area, all the nooks and crannies, and just trying to get it scuffed up and rough enough for paint to adhere to it well, like so that you don't see any kind of rough areas through the paint job. We want it to be nice and smooth looking, but we want it to look original, but we want it to be smooth looking. So I have to get decals off and make sure there's no grease or anything left. We power washed it, but I'm sure there's still areas where there's dirt and grease that we've got to get clean. So, and another thing we have to take off is these hood hinges. We're going to get those sandblasted because they were not originally black. They were the natural color of phosphate, I think is what it is. That was phosphate treatment on the metal. So let's get started and do some filler work. That's about all the time I've got for tonight. I did get the filler done on the battery apron area and this front area. So that's all ready for some primer. Maybe I might go up another grit and sand it a little bit more to smooth it out before I go to the primer. And I still got to do that little area down there, which is almost, I'm not even sure if I need to put filler on it. It's so smooth that it's down there on the frame, but I probably will. But tomorrow night I'll do that, and then I'll start taking off these things to sandblast. Things keep getting in the way of getting the car done, like that. Mower deck issues. So sometimes you gotta stop doing the fun stuff and start doing the unfun stuff. Well, let's start where we finished off last night. All I've got left to do is to get in there and put that thin layer of filler on the frame down there, and then sand it. And then while it's drying, before I sand it, I'll start taking off some of these pieces up at the top to get ready to sandblast. looks like about it for tonight. I got that area filled and sanded down there on the frame. Got all the hardware stuff off the shock towers and the brace. The hood hinges are all off. Here they all are. So that's the pile of stuff I've got to sandblast. I'm not sure if that big brace will fit in the blasting cabinet, but I'll try. If not, then I'll have to do it by hand. I thought I was done sandblasting this car and I forgot about that stuff, so that's more of a pain that I hate doing, sandblasting, but part of it. And check out these shock towers. You know, that's usually the worst place for rust, and those are pretty doggone good. Good and solid. There's no, I don't see any rust through, just a little surface. I think that's just dirt. So that's pretty cool. So everything else is in this engine bay. It's just going to be a lot of sanding and scraping and washing and cleaning and getting ready for paint. And that will be starting tomorrow. The underside of it was just rust, so the sandblaster blasts that off easy. But this top has got some kind of a rubberized, I don't know if it's rubberized or it's something, but that sand will not even touch it. So I'm gonna have to try to get that off there with a wire brush or something, get it broke loose enough to where the sandblaster will actually get down to bare metal. So these small cabinet blasters, even at 100 and something pounds in there, there's some stuff that, I guess, especially if it's rubber or anything like that, it just bounces off. It won't get down to the metal. So see what I can do with a wire brush. Wire brushing that helped a lot. You got most of it off, but there's still some areas like way down in here around the edges. I mean, and I sandblasted it again after I wire brushed it. And I mean, these things will just not come off, these, whatever this kind of paint is. I don't know if it was like 415 or whatever it is, it will not come off. So I'm gonna have to get a Dremel and get down in there with something, and then at least get the paint, top layer of the paint off, so the sandblaster can get the rest off. Then I gotta do the same thing with the other one, and then I just hope that the hinges don't have that same kind of paint on it, because if they do, that will be a nightmare. Okay, so the little Dremel tool did the trick. Went through there and got into the hard spots, like up in these areas and around, and went back into the sandblaster and shot it again, and everything came off. So this is the tip I used on the Dremel. It's a little round file is what it really is. It's got tiny little file grooves on it. So that's what did it. So now I'll go to the next one and get that one done, and then to the dreaded hinges.
2 hours later.
Alright, so there's those finally finished. So now we'll head to the hood hinges, and I'm even going to need to look at those a little bit closer to decide if I need to try to take those springs off. I don't know how hard that's going to be, if that's even possible, so that I can pivot the stuff while I'm trying to sandblast it and make sure all the sand gets back out of there before we paint. So let me play with those a little bit and we'll see what happens here. So as you probably guessed, the hinges were painted in the same ridiculously hard paint as the tops of the shock towers. So the springs came off, it came off real easy. So when I finish sandblasting that, that'll be nice and even and ready for the clear coat. But this is going to take a while. It's just not wanting to come off, so I'm having to use a drill with a wire brush inside, and then I've been using this wire brush and just trying to get it all broke loose enough to get it to where I can sandblast and get an even color. So I'll keep working.
Three days later.
Well, it's getting there. One side is probably 90% done. The other side's probably 60% done. It just takes a very, very long time to get that all that really hard paint off. It it flakes off, and if you do too much of it with that in there in the sandblaster, whatever flakes come off from the paint, instead of just turn into dust, the flakes go in there and clog up the nozzle as it circulates back through. So it is just a real pain. But I don't know, it's probably taken an hour and a half to get this far on this one hinge. So hopefully tomorrow I'll finish that up and get started on the next one. As I said before, I'm going to start in on this one again and finish up some of these little spots. You can see I didn't get very good with the blaster, and we need to get it all a uniform color so that when we use clear coat on it, it will look right and not be able to see all that stuff through it. So hopefully not much longer and we'll have this one finished. So let's put her in the blaster.
12 seconds later.
Well, that one is complete. It took a long time, probably I guess 2 hours total from start to finish on one hinge of constant sanding and scraping. So okay, so in working on these two little areas where that Monte Carlo bar was attached, when I first looked at it, I thought, well, I'll just weld in these holes, but it's not that easy. This is what those little grooves are supposed to look like. A nice sharp edge on the top with a little gutter right there for water to come down. And so when they put that Monte Carlo bar on there, they had a washer up underneath it, and when they tightened it up, it pushed that gutter back out. So what I've got to do is beat that thing back down into submission, make that little groove back in, or it's triangular shape, kind of like that one, and then weld it back. So I started working on this one over here. I've about got it. It might be hard to tell on the camera, but I got the ridges back in. Had to get back underneath with some stuff and chisel and some stuff and beat it back up. But I've got it beat up through the center of that hole. So now I'll go back in and weld that hole shut and then grind it back down again. It should be, once I put a little filler on it, it should not be able to be seen, I hope. So just want to show you before and after. So I'll weld that up and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so that side's done. I don't know how well you can see it on this camera, but you won't be able to see once I put a little skim coat of filler on there. I've got the angle right, I think, and the hole's filled in, so should be great. So I don't want to bore you guys. I'll do the other side off camera, and I'll do most of the cleaning of that hinge over there off camera, since that's boring. And then hopefully when we start next week's video, we'll have that done and the other piece of this, and we'll start on some new stuff. And hopefully I'll have my sandblasting cabinet stuff in by then. So that's all the time we've got for today, guys. I do really appreciate you sticking out with me through this whole process. It's a long, tedious job doing a restoration versus a rebuild project. And you've got to fix everything as you go and, you know, rebuild it from rust and problems like that. But I promise you, we will finally eventually get done with that part of it and get to the painting and reinstalling the engine. And I look forward to that as much as you do, believe me. So if you enjoyed the program, give us a thumbs up down below, and please make some comments. We enjoy that, and we'll see you next week.
And always remember, don't retire it if you can rebuild it. See you guys next week. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in and watching this week's episode of Rebuild It. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any awesome content. Have a good one.